There was a time when the world's most famous toy brand, the one sitting in nearly every home today, loved by kids and adults alike, was standing on the edge of bankruptcy. LEGO, the company whose 6 simple plastic bricks can be combined in 915,103,765 different ways. The company whose name is recognized in nearly every language on Earth. But in 2004, this same company was carrying billions in debt. Warehouses were stacked with toys nobody was buying. And the people running the company were seriously asking themselves whether the LEGO name might soon become history. A toy that defines childhood itself was fighting for its own survival. In this video, we're going to walk through the entire story, how LEGO was built, why it became one of the biggest brands on the planet, and how it nearly collapsed under the weight of its own success. But if you stick around until the end, I'll show you something that was sitting inside LEGO's warehouses during the 2004 crisis, a mountain of unsold inventory so massive that even the company's own executives were stunned by how badly they'd misjudged things. It became a symbol of everything we're about to unpack. Let's start at the beginning, 1932, in a small Danish workshop. LEGO was founded in 1932. Its founder was Ole Kirk Kristiansen, a carpenter living in the small town of Billund, Denmark. This was the era of the Great Depression. People were saving every penny, businesses were folding left and right, and survival wasn't easy for a small-town carpenter. Ole Kirk's business was seriously hit by this economic collapse. But he refused to give up. He started making wooden toys, small cars, animals, and household items. In the beginning, LEGO wasn't just toys. The company also made furniture and household products. This wasn't a passion project. It was survival. And it was these wooden toys that carried Ole Kirk's business through the Depression. While bigger businesses were collapsing around him, a tiny carpentry workshop stayed alive because of its creativity and resilience. In 1934, Ole Kirk named his company LEGO, derived from the Danish phrase, "leg godt," meaning play well. A simple name, but a philosophy that would define this company for the next 90 years. This was what set LEGO apart from every other toy maker. It wasn't just a company making toys, it was a company that treated playing well as its mission. While competitors chased sales, LEGO's founder obsessed over quality and craftsmanship. The business stayed in the family for generations. For Ole Kirk, this wasn't just a company, it was a legacy he wanted to pass down. And these same values, patience, quality, and creativity, would later become LEGO's greatest strength. The cultural timing was perfect. In post-war Europe, families wanted something for their children that wasn't just entertainment, but education and creativity too. LEGO filled exactly that gap in the market. Competitors couldn't fill that gap, because they didn't have the founding philosophy Ole Kirk Kristiansen had, one that put craftsmanship before profit. But the real transformation began when LEGO started shifting away from wood and toward plastic. In the 1940s, LEGO began moving toward plastic toys, and in 1947 the company officially started producing them. This was a massive risk. Plastic was a new, untested material at the time, and plenty of people didn't trust it. Then came 1949, the moment that changed LEGO's destiny forever, the introduction of the early interlocking bricks. These were called automatic binding bricks. But these early bricks weren't perfect. Their grip strength was limited. Kids' models would sometimes just fall apart on their own, the kind of flaw that could sink any new product. This is where LEGO did something most companies don't. They didn't ignore the complaints. They took customer feedback seriously and poured their focus into improving the brick's design. This was the unfair advantage that separated LEGO from its competitors. A business model built on a feedback loop, where the company actually listened to its customers and refined its core product accordingly. And that persistence became LEGO's identity. The plastic brick, once a risky experiment, eventually became the entire identity of the company. This growth pushed LEGO far ahead of competitors still stuck with old materials and old designs. While other toy companies followed their traditional models, LEGO kept reinventing its core product. And that scalability became the foundation for the explosive growth of the next decade. Then came the day that became LEGO's biggest turning point, January 28, 1958. On this day, the patent application for the modern Lego brick was filed. The new design introduced a system of studs and tubes that gave the bricks a strong, secure connection, the connection still known today as Lego's famous clutch power. This wasn't just an engineering improvement, it was a revolution. The basic design of this modern brick stayed remarkably consistent for decades, and old and new Lego bricks still remain compatible to this day. A brick bought in 1958 can still fit with a brand new set today. This was the genius that put Lego miles ahead of every other toy brand. It wasn't just a brick, it was a complete building system. And a system can keep expanding on itself, while a single toy gets bought once and forgotten. That same year, 1958, Ole Kirk Kristiansen passed away. His son, Ole Kirk Kristiansen, took over leadership and decided to push his father's vision even further. Ole developed a concept called system in play. Its focus wasn't on individual toys, it was on how different Lego sets could connect with one another, giving children open-ended creativity instead of a single fixed set of instructions. In 1960, a warehouse fire destroyed a large portion of Lego's wooden toy inventory. It was a disaster, but it gave Lego an unexpected clarity. After this fire, the company largely abandoned wooden toys and put its full focus into the plastic building system. Throughout the 1960s, Lego was expanding internationally. The company entered the North American market. Wheels were introduced, making it far easier for kids to build vehicles. In 1968, the first LEGOLAND park opened in Billund. Lego was no longer just selling toys, it was selling entire entertainment experiences. In 1969, the DUPLO line was introduced, bricks considerably larger than the standard Lego bricks, designed for younger children. Now Lego had a product for every age group. Then in 1978 came the Lego minifigure, that small plastic figure that would later become one of the most iconic parts of the entire Lego system. By the 1980s and 1990s, Lego had become a global toy powerhouse. Everywhere, in every culture, the Lego name was tied to success. It seemed like nothing could stop this company. This was the false peak, when everything looked perfect. But when you expand this fast, in this many directions, something quietly starts building underneath the surface, a danger that isn't visible yet. Drunk on success, Lego began expanding far beyond its core brick. The company started experimenting with new themes and entirely new product categories. Video games, electronic products, clothing, other merchandise. The Lego name was no longer confined to bricks. The company also expanded its theme park business. Every new idea, every new product looked good on its own. But little by little, the product portfolio became so complex that the company's focus started drifting away from its core brick. This was the hidden flaw, not fatal yet, but it would become the biggest threat in the years to come: complexity. Every new idea carried its own weight of cost, risk, and management overhead. And that weight quietly piled up, completely unnoticed. It was a lot like a person adding so many things to their life that they forget their actual strength, their identity. Lego was losing its greatest asset, simplicity and focused creativity, but nobody fully realized it yet. Now begins the part of the story where one problem creates the next, and each one gets worse than the last. Overdependence on licensed themes. In 1999, Lego partnered with Star Wars, a massive success. Lego Harry Potter followed and was equally successful. Bionicle, original line, also boosted sales significantly. But a hidden problem was buried in there. Some licensed products were heavily dependent on movie releases. In the year a movie came out, sales were strong. But the following year, when there was no new movie, sales would sharply decline. Lego's revenue was no longer standing on its own strength. It was now tied to Hollywood's release calendar. Failed experiments. Lego developed some products that strayed far from its traditional identity. The most infamous of these was Galador, a line that broke from Lego's core identity entirely. It was discontinued in less than a year. Every failed experiment doesn't just waste money, it adds to the company's complexity and costs. Engineers, designers, marketers, everyone's time and resources were being poured into projects that never succeeded. Financial deterioration. By the early 2000s, LEGO's financial situation was deteriorating rapidly. In 2003, the company saw a dramatic decline in sales. LEGO was facing negative cash flow, meaning the company was earning less and spending more. The company's debt reached approximately DKK 5 billion, a number that would be devastating for any toy company. A mountain of unsold inventory. LEGO was sitting on huge amounts of unsold inventory. Warehouses were packed with toys nobody was buying. Every unsold box, every set still sitting on a shelf, was locking up the company's money with no return in sight. External market pressure. It wasn't just LEGO's own mistakes, the entire traditional toy market was under pressure. Electronic entertainment was becoming serious competition for traditional toys. Kids' attention was shifting toward video games and digital entertainment. The retail industry itself was going through major structural changes, with big retailers becoming far more demanding about shelf space. One after another, all of these factors piled up on top of LEGO. There was no single reason that could have taken this company down, but the combined weight of everything was slowly pushing it toward collapse. By 2004, LEGO had reached a near bankruptcy situation. 2004 is considered one of the most serious financial crises in the company's entire history. Eventually, LEGO's board of directors had to make a decision they'd probably never imagined making, stepping aside from their own family leadership. In 2004, Jørgen Vig Knudstorp became LEGO's new CEO. This was a historic moment, because he was the first CEO to come from outside the LEGO family. A company that had operated like a family business for 72 years was now trusting its survival to an outsider. This was the moment where everyone, shareholders, employees, retailers, subconsciously thought, this company is done. The debt was so massive that the company's independent existence was in question. The inventory was so vast that no one knew how it would ever clear out. And the market pressure was so intense that the future of the traditional toy industry itself was uncertain. This was the point of no return, where LEGO would either completely reinvent itself or disappear for good. When Jørgen Vig Knudstorp took charge, what he found wasn't a pretty picture for any new CEO to inherit. LEGO launched its radical turnaround strategy, but before that, the company had to make some painful, difficult decisions. The company sold off its LEGOLAND parks, an asset that once symbolized LEGO's expansion, now sacrificed just to keep the company alive. Unprofitable and overly complex products were drastically cut. Every line that had drifted from the core identity was either shut down or restructured. Manufacturing strategy underwent major changes, and costs were slashed aggressively. This was the moment the world watched a once unstoppable toy giant selling off its assets, cutting its products, and being forced to redefine its own identity just to survive. The tone here wasn't dramatic, it was calm, analytical decision-making. Every decision was made for survival, not for spectacle. Now remember what I promised you at the beginning, the things sitting in LEGO's warehouses during the 2004 crisis. When LEGO's new executives took stock of the company, they found mountains of LEGO sets in the warehouses, inventory that was never going to sell. Every box, every unopened set, was a symbol of the overconfidence the company had fallen into during its own success. This wasn't just an accounting problem. It was a reminder that when a company forgets its core purpose and chases nothing but expansion, the very thing that once made it strong, production, ambition, growth, becomes its greatest weakness. Those warehouses, packed to the brim, sent LEGO's new leadership a clear message. It was time to refocus on the core. This symbolic moment reshaped the thinking of the entire company. So what's the biggest lesson in this entire story? The turnaround strategy came down to one word: simplification. LEGO focused on making its business manageable and profitable again. The company started controlling the number and complexity of its products. Greater emphasis was placed on understanding what customers actually wanted, and the core LEGO experience was strengthened once again. License themes weren't abandoned entirely, they were used strategically, in a far more controlled way. Most importantly, LEGO made creativity and storytelling the central part of its brand strategy again, the exact same thing Ole Kirk Kristiansen had started back in 1932. After the turnaround, LEGO rapidly returned to profitable growth, and today it's one of the most valuable and respected toy companies in the world. LEGO's near collapse has become one of the most famous examples of a modern corporate turnaround. This isn't just a story about a toy company, it's a lesson for any business that gets so drunk on its own success that it forgets its actual identity. Most importantly, LEGO had almost lost its identity entirely, but a renewed focus on its core product, a disciplined strategy, and focused leadership brought the company back from the brink of collapse. So let me ask you, if you were LEGO's CEO at that moment, with billions in debt and warehouses stacked with unsold toys, what would you have done? Would you have moved just as fast to simplify the company's identity? Or would you have tried something completely different? And here's the bigger question. Is a story like LEGO's limited to the toy industry? Or can any company that gets high on its own success end up walking this exact same path? Let me know in the comments.